I worked 12 years as a maritime traffic monitoring specialist before I saw a ship that never arrived. Most people imagine vessel tracking as a clean job. Screens, maps, blinking icons, radio calls, weather overlays, port schedules. From the outside, it probably looks like air traffic control, only slower. In some ways, that is true. Ships do not move fast. They hesitate across the sea like thoughts that take hours to finish. But the work was never simple. At the National Vessel Tracking Center, our job was to keep the coast alive on a wall of screens. We watched cargo ships, tankers, fishing fleets, ferries, research vessels, military traffic when they felt like identifying themselves, and anything else carrying an AIS transponder. AIS stands for Automatic Identification System. It broadcasts a vessel's name, position, speed, heading, destination, and other details to nearby stations and satellites. Most of the time, the system worked. Most of the time, when a ship said it was going somewhere, it eventually got there. The building itself sat inland, far from the water, which always made the night shifts feel wrong. We monitored the ocean from a concrete government facility surrounded by parking lots, drainage ditches, and sodium lights. No waves, no gulls, no salt in the air, just coffee, recycled air, and the constant soft hum of equipment. At night, the main operations room went dim except for the screens, blue coastlines, white vessel tracks, green status boxes, red weather alerts. The ocean became a flat, glowing thing on the wall. That was where I first saw the Maribel. She appeared during a quiet Wednesday shift in late October. At 2:13, a vessel icon entered our coastal approach zone from the southeast. Nothing unusual, medium cargo vessel, registered under Panama, length 160 meters, speed 12 knots. Destination, Port Alder Terminal 4. Her AIS name read MV Maribel. I checked her against the inbound list. She was not on it. That happened sometimes. Poor scheduling, delayed paperwork, updated manifests not yet shared with traffic control. I opened the vessel details, expecting to see a recent voyage plan or at least a shipping agent contact. There was almost nothing. Call sign H9MB7, IMO number listed but grayed out. Destination, Port Alder, ETA 340. Status, underway using engine. Cargo type, general cargo. I sent a standard text query through the AIS messaging system. MV Maribel, confirm inbound clearance and agent. No response. I waited 3 minutes and tried again. Nothing. Then I called Port Alder traffic desk. A man named Reyes answered. I knew him from night rotations. Port Alder traffic. Reyes, this is Central Monitoring. Do you have an MV Maribel inbound for Terminal 4? There was a pause. I heard paper moving on his end, then keyboard taps. Negative. No Maribel scheduled tonight. She's showing 61 nautical miles southeast. Destination Port Alder, ETA 0340. Not on our board. Could be late filing. Maybe, but Terminal 4 is closed tonight, crane maintenance. That was the first small thing. Ships make mistakes. People enter the wrong port. Old destinations stay in the AIS field for days. Crews forget to update them. But an unscheduled cargo ship aiming for a closed terminal still had to be handled. We kept watching. The Maribel held steady for another 40 minutes. Same speed, same course. Clean track line, no erratic movement, no weather interference, no gaps. Then at 2:57, she slowed from 12 knots to 4. At 3:02, her navigation status changed, approaching destination. I leaned closer to the screen. She was still 48 nautical miles offshore. No cargo vessel reports approaching destination that far out unless someone manually sets it wrong. I made a note in the shift log and called again. MV Maribel, this is National Vessel Tracking Center. Confirm your destination and port contact. Static answered. Not silence. Static. That bothered me because I had not used VHF voice yet. I had sent a digital message. Still, for half a second, our console speaker clicked and breathed out a flat wash of static as if something had opened a channel and then thought better of speaking. My supervisor, Elena, looked up from the next station. You call somebody? No, digital only. She came over and looked at my screen. The Maribel's icon blinked once. Then her ETA changed from 340 to 340. The time did not update. It simply refreshed with the same number. Elena frowned. System lag? Only on her. She checked the raw feed. Satellite AIS, coastal receiver, and backup relay were all receiving the same data. Same position, same course, same destination, same impossible status. Approaching destination. At 3:21, Port Alder called us first. Reyes sounded different now. Central, do you still have that Maribel? Affirmative. We just got an automated berth request from her. For Terminal 4? No, Terminal 4B. There is no 4B. I know. I looked at Elena. She had heard him through my headset because the room was quiet enough. Reyes continued. Request came through the old port management system, the one we replaced 5 years ago. That made no sense. The old system had been disconnected, archived. We still had records from it, but vessels could not use it to request berth assignments anymore. What did the request say? I asked. Another pause. Same line repeated 4 times. Arriving shortly. Hold position for receiving party. Receiving party? That's what it says. The Maribel stayed on the screen until 3:40. At exactly 3:40, her icon vanished. No distress call, no loss of signal warning, no final position alert. She did not fade at the edge of coverage. She disappeared 43 nautical miles offshore in calm water. The raw feed showed no termination. Just one timestamp, then nothing. By morning, the day shift treated it like a data issue. Someone suggested spoofed AIS. Another said stale satellite packets. One analyst thought the vessel name had been cloned from an older ship. Those were reasonable explanations. They were the explanations I wanted. Then Elena searched the archive. She found the Maribel had appeared before. Not once, not twice. Every October, for 27 years. Always inbound to Port Alder, always southeast approach, always destination Terminal 4 or some version of it. Always status changed to approaching destination while still far offshore. Always vanished at 3:40. The earliest record was from 1997, back when the center used a different system and half the coast was still tracked by radar plots and phone reports. The strange part was not that the ship appeared in old records. The strange part was that in every record, her voyage status was the same, approaching destination, for 27 years. I spent the next week trying to prove it was a technical ghost. That was the phrase we used for bad data that kept returning. Not a ghost in the horror sense, just an old record stuck in a database, or a corrupted template, or a test signal accidentally rebroadcast from some forgotten equipment. But technical ghosts behave like broken machines. The Maribel behaved like a vessel. Her course adjusted for weather. Her speed changed with current. Her track bent around active traffic lanes. In 2004, she slowed to avoid a tanker. In 2011, she shifted north during a storm cell. In 2018, she appeared 2 miles farther east after a new exclusion zone was established for offshore construction. A repeating data error does not obey new restrictions. A dead record does not avoid ships that did not exist when the record was created. I checked the IMO number. It belonged to a cargo vessel built in 1978 under a different name. Sold twice. Reflagged 3 times. Reported scrapped in Bangladesh in 1996. 1 year before the first Maribel record. There were no current photos, no crew list, no active insurance, no classification status, nothing. Just an old vessel that should have been cut apart before our system ever tracked it. The following October, I requested the night shift on the expected date. I told myself it was for documentation. That was not entirely true. Part of me needed to see whether she would come back. Elena had transferred by then, but she left me a folder before she left. Printed logs, screenshots, port messages, handwritten notes from older operators. On the inside cover, she had written one sentence: "Do not be the first person to answer her by name." I remember staring at that line longer than I should have. It sounded ridiculous, superstitious. The kind of workplace warning people invent after years of staring at screens in the dark. But I also noticed something in the older logs. Every operator who had directly addressed the Maribel by name had filed for reassignment within 6 months. One had retired early. One had a breakdown during shift. One walked out of the center at 4:12 and never came back to collect his things. None of that proved anything. Still, when the Maribel appeared that year at 2:13, I did not use her name. "Unscheduled inbound cargo vessel southeast of Port Alder," I said into the recorded channel. "Confirm identity and destination." For 12 seconds, there was nothing. Then the speaker clicked. A voice came through. It was male, distant, and buried under layers of static. "Port Alder traffic. This is motor vessel Maribel. We are approaching destination." The operations room went still. There were 5 of us on shift. Everyone heard it. I checked the range. 61 nautical miles offshore. Her speed was 12 knots. Her ETA was already 340. I asked, "Unscheduled inbound vessel. Confirm current position." The reply came faster this time. "Approaching destination." I looked at the radar overlay. There was no radar return where her AIS icon sat. That can happen far offshore depending on conditions, but the coastal receiver had her clearly. Satellite had her. Backup relay had her. AIS said she was there. Radar said empty water. At 2:39, a second vessel crossed within 6 nautical miles of the Maribel's projected track. The tanker North Regent. Real ship. Full radar return. Live radio contact. I called them and asked if they had visual contact with traffic off their port bow. The watch officer sounded confused. "Negative traffic, visibility clear, we have no contact there." "You have no vessel 6 miles west?" "Nothing on radar. Nothing visual." The Maribel's icon passed behind the tanker's track. For 30 seconds, both symbols overlapped on the main screen. Then the North Regent called back. "Traffic, did you just lose our AIS?" We had not. "Negative, Regent, we still have you." Our bridge display showed another target crossing through us. "What target?" A pause. "I don't know." It had our destination listed. His voice lowered. It showed us arriving at Port Alder in 1997. No one spoke after that. At 3:02, the Maribel slowed to 4 knots. Her status changed. Approaching destination. This time Port Alder did not call us. Instead, our old printer started running. We had a thermal printer in the corner used only for backup alerts. It had not printed anything in months. The paper came out curled and pale. I tore it off. "Berth request received. Terminal 4B. Vessel MV Maribel. Arrival 0340. Cargo undeclared. Receiving party waiting." Below that was a line of numbers, coordinates, not offshore, inland. The coordinates pointed to the center of our own building. One of the junior operators laughed once, very softly, because sometimes fear comes out that way. Then the lights above the main map flickered. Our system did not go down. That almost would have been easier. Instead, everything kept working, but details began to disagree with each other. The weather overlay showed fog over Port Alder. The live harbor camera showed clear air. The port tide gauge reported low tide. The chart display marked high tide. The inbound list suddenly contained one entry: MV Maribel arrived, but her icon was still offshore. At 3:18, the phone rang at my desk. Internal line. I picked up. "Traffic monitoring." For a moment, I heard wind, not static. "Wind." Then a man said, "We can see the lights." I did not answer. He continued, "Receiving party is not present." I looked across the room. Every operator was watching me. "Identify yourself," I said. There was a long breath. Then he said my last name, not mispronounced, not guessed from a database in a robotic way, said like someone reading it from a clipboard in front of him. "We have your center in sight." I hung up. Immediately, the harbor camera feed changed. It no longer showed Port Alder. It showed water at night. Black water, close to the camera, moving gently against something metal. No shoreline, no terminal lights, no timestamp except 3:28, even though the actual time was 3:23. Then lights appeared in the distance, not city lights, window lights. rows of small yellow rectangles, stacked along the dark shape of a ship. Someone behind me whispered, "Is that from one of our cameras?" Nobody answered because nobody knew. The image held for 20 seconds. Then the camera returned to Port Alder, clear and empty. At 3:31, the Maribel began transmitting position updates every second. AIS usually updates based on speed and vessel type. Not like that, not with that precision. Her coordinates advanced toward Port Alder, but the distance did not shrink correctly. Each update moved her closer on the map while the range number stayed almost the same. 43 nautical miles, then 43.1, then 42.9, then 43 again. It was like the map wanted her to arrive and the sea refused. At 3:35, Port Alder finally called. It was not Reyes. It was a woman I did not know. She sounded frightened. "Central, we have dock workers at Terminal 4 reporting engine noise. Terminal 4 is closed." "I know. Do they see a vessel?" "No, they hear one." Behind her voice, faintly, I heard a deep mechanical rhythm. A ship's engine at low power, slow, heavy, patient. Then she said, "They also smell diesel and wet rope." I checked the Maribel's icon, still offshore. At 3:38, every vessel name on our main display changed. For 2 seconds, the whole coast was full of Maribels. Tankers, ferries, pilot boats, fishing vessels, all renamed MV Maribel, all showing the same destination, Port Alder. Then the names snapped back, except one. The North Regent now showed a new ETA, 340. I called them. No response. I called again. Nothing. At 3:39, the Maribel hailed us. The voice was clearer now. "Port Alder traffic, this is motor vessel Maribel. We are approaching destination. Request final instructions." I knew I should not answer. I also knew there was a real tanker out there whose crew might be seeing something we could not understand. So I replied without using the name. "Unscheduled inbound vessel, hold position, do not proceed." The speaker hissed. Then the man said, "We have been holding." His voice changed on the last word, not louder, not distorted, just tired in a way that made my stomach tighten. "We have been holding for 27 years. At exactly 3:40, the Maribel vanished. So did the North Regent. For 9 seconds, the tanker disappeared from AIS, radar, and satellite relay. When it came back, the North Regent was 6 nautical miles east of its previous position. That is not possible. A tanker cannot move 6 nautical miles in 9 seconds. Their bridge answered after that. The watch officer sounded shaken and refused to describe what had happened over open radio. Later, in the written report, he claimed all navigation screens went blank. The sea around them turned foggy for less than a minute, and a cargo ship passed close enough that they could hear metal strain in the hull. No one saw the ship clearly. Only lights, only rust, only a name painted near the stern. Maribel. The official investigation blamed a combined AIS spoofing event, equipment malfunction, and human stress during night operations. That explanation satisfied the people who needed it to satisfy them. I left the center 5 months later. I told people it was burnout. That was partly true. But the real reason was the final document I found before I resigned. It was buried in the scanned port archives from 1997. A handwritten arrival notice for Terminal 4, logged at 3:40 on the same October date. Vessel arrived, MV Maribel, berth 4B. Cargo undeclared, receiving party, National Vessel Tracking Center. At the bottom was a signature line. The receiving officer's name was mine, not someone with the same last name. My full name, written years before I ever worked there. I still check public vessel trackers sometimes. I know I should not. The Maribel never appears in normal searches, not during the day, but every October I wake before 3:40 without setting an alarm. And for a few minutes I swear I can hear something outside my apartment window. Not waves, not traffic. A ship engine idling in the dark, still waiting for permission to come in.